Let's not go by the rules. Let's go by the human's intention. And that was probably the most difficult part, was to do an apprenticeship at 34 and sit in a classroom with 17-year-olds that could spell, read and write.
I'm just fascinated though by your mindset around that, because it really is it's just perspective, right? And you made it work, obviously, because of where you're at now. So often in life, when these things aren't going well for us, life sucks, it's not going well. But out of that comes the most amazing things, flourishes, in your case, an incredible business, multiple businesses, and a beautiful life. Have you, were your parents business owners as well? How did you get into business ownership in the first place?
Yeah, my parents are the original entrepreneurs. My mum's nearly turning 90, and she grew up in Papua New Guinea, and my dad went there because he was too young to go to war, and he was a 17-year-old panel beater apprentice. And from there, they had multiple businesses. I was in a family where we worked. We didn't dream. And if you were going to dream, you were going to action it. And that's how I grew up. I grew up in I call it the original entrepreneur mindset, where we can have, my father had a franchise, Volvo franchise for marine boats. And then he worked out that he needed a fishing tackle shop because everybody that had boats went fishing. And then he worked out he needed a panel beating shop because everybody needed some panel beating. And then he worked out he needed a fiberglass shop because everybody had holes in their boats. He needed fiberglass them up. And then he worked out he needed a support. And then he worked out, and it was just this radiator business because the cars that carry the boat need new radiators. And it's really, when I think about it, my parents are the original kind of heads, the word entrepreneur, but they worked. And so we were brought up, my brother and I, to work and to be super clear of our execution and outcome, and not to just be frugal and my parents brought us up never to have any debt, no credit cards, always no credit cards. And that's how I've been raised. So that really came out of that, it really did. And not going to school like all the other little girls with pigtails. I was sticking stamps on envelopes, or, dusting shelves, or doing the best I could at that age to, have the units of time in the day be spent productively. But it was mostly working or being naughty.
Yeah, I can imagine you causing a bit of a stir back in the day. Yeah, I love that. I too come from a similar ilk. My dad was he was not perhaps as classic entrepreneur as your dad sounded, but he was always running businesses. And there was one foundational element to what he did, no matter what he did, and that was he worked freaking hard. Right? And he knew what he wanted and he was focused on it. And he worked himself into the ground in the end, which also isn't the best thing, but there's that work ethic.
Yeah.
And so often I say to people, sometimes you just got to freaking work hard. You got to put the hours in, you got to put the time in if you want to create something amazing in this life,